We are bombarded with 11 million pieces of information at any one time, but our brains can only really process 40. This means that 99.9999999% of our thinking happens unconsciously. To handle it all, our brain has to take shortcuts. And it's these shortcuts that lead to unconscious bias. Now, the goal of every hiring manager or recruiter is to recruit the best employees possible. But sometimes the unconscious bias in our brains can, and often do, influence hiring decisions. Now, the first step in order to avoid unconscious bias is to be aware of the different ways that our brains can be influenced, so we can learn to recognise how these attitudes are expressed in our behaviours and we can learn to correct them. So here are the 6 most common types of unconscious bias that our brains are subject to. Affinity bias basically means that we're more likely to hire people that we feel similarly to. So we're much more likely to hire someone who went to the same school as us, or who lived in the same town as us, or who kind of just reminds us of someone that we like. In fact, a 2018 study showed that employees are really likely to report to managers of the same ethnicity and gender. When we think of our lives, we tend to attribute our achievements to our own personal merits, but our failures to circumstances beyond our control that prevented us from performing our best. But when we think of other people, we tend to find that the opposite is true. In recruitment, this can mean that we focus too much on a candidate's faults, and therefore we mentally minimise their achievements. Conformity bias happens when you skew your own opinions in order to agree with a group. So if you're deciding something about a candidate and the rest of the group thinks one thing, you'll probably decide to agree with them even if your original opinion differed. Confirmation bias is our tendency to only search for information that backs up our preconceived ideas. After all, we all want to be proved right all the time. However, this can lead to selective observation, where we often overlook information that's given to us that forces us to challenge our ideas. The halo effect occurs when we find one piece of really positive information about a candidate, but this then skews our perception of all of their other achievements more favourably. So you might find a candidate who's won a really prestigious award, but this award will probably skew your perception of their other achievements, making you think they're better than they actually are. This is the opposite of the halo effect. So we basically pick one thing we really don't like about a person and then apply this negative mindset to everything else they do. Here is your handy checklist to help you avoid unconscious bias in the hiring process. Your job ads might be shrinking your talent pool without you even noticing. This is because there are some words and phrases that will deter women and minorities from applying. Research carried out by Danielle Gaucher, Justin Friesen and Aaron C.K. found that job adverts containing sentences like "we're looking for a strong, confident leader" would be far more likely to attract a male applicant, but ads looking for supportive candidates who could work in a collaborative environment would be far more likely to attract female candidates. There are plenty of free tools out there like the Gender Decoder by Kat Matfield or BeApplied.com's text analysis tool, and these will help you single out the problematic words and phrases in your job adverts and help you reword or remove them. Ask prospective candidates to give you a real-life sample of work that they might be doing on the job. This will not only help you compare candidates, removing all your preconceptions of what they might be like, but studies show that this is a really good indicator of future job performance. Often, our responses to candidates can be emotional, so instead use a numerical ranking system when considering the more emotional hiring factors such as likability or cultural fit. Back in 2003, researchers published a study called "Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakisha and Jamal?" They made up a whole load of CVs, all identical, and some had typically white names on, and the others had typically black names on. Now, they sent these off to employers, and they found that CVs with typically white names on had a callback rate of 9.65%. But the same CV with a black-sounding name on had a callback rate of 6.45%. That's why it's so important to review CVs without any identifying markers on, so you can make sure that you're giving every single candidate a fair shot. every candidate who comes in to interview with you the same set of questions not only minimises bias, but if you align those questions to the job description, you're also going to make sure that you only ask them for the skills and experience they have that will help them in the job. When you're conducting an interview, you should reframe it in your mind. It's not a decision-making session, it's just another data gathering exercise. This kind of thinking, where you're just getting data to use along with their CV and their sample work test, will stop you from making hasty or instinctive hiring decisions. So this was just a whistle-stop tour through your brain's unconscious bias. But a really important thing about this process is it's not a one video and you're done kind of thing. You can't just watch this video, then waltz out into the world, be super aware of your unconscious bias and never be influenced by it again. It's more of a learning process. Hopefully now you will go out there and you will realise the red flags and the markers that you are being influenced by your unconscious biases, and then you'll actively learn to correct them.